Decoded secrets of prison tattoos. The hidden symbols they never explained. There are stories carved into skin that no outsider was ever meant to read. Stories told without a single word, yet powerful enough to expose a person's past, their loyalties, their fears, and the choices that shaped their life forever. Most people look at a tattoo and see art. But inside prison, a tattoo is a confession or a warning. And some of these symbols carry truths so dangerous that even explaining them has gotten people hurt. Today, we decode the symbols no one ever explained, revealing the hidden language that researchers have spent decades trying to understand. This documentary is created strictly for educational and informational purposes. All scenes, narration, and descriptions are presented in a responsible and respectful manner. No graphic content or harmful behavior is shown or encouraged. This video complies with YouTube's community guidelines, and all sensitive topics discussed are handled with care and neutrality. Viewer discretion is advised due to the real-life nature of prison environments. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd really love to hear from you. If you enjoy true crime documentaries like this, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and share this video with someone who would enjoy it too. Your support helps us keep bringing powerful stories to life. Prison tattoos are not random marks. They are a survival language built from history, trauma, identity, and silent negotiations inside some of the world's toughest correctional systems. This documentary draws on verified insights from criminologists like Dr. Craig Haney, sociologists like John Irwin, research findings from the National Institute of Justice, behavioral analysis from the American Psychological Association, and real accounts gathered from correctional rehabilitation interviews documented by the Chicago Crime Lab and CDCR Educational Archives. The goal is not to glamorize or promote crime. It is to understand the psychological world behind these symbols, why they exist, what they reveal, and how they shape the lives of the people who carried them. The first mark. Before any symbol can be decoded, you must understand the moment it appears. The first tattoo an inmate chooses when they enter the system. Researchers documented a pattern. The first tattoo rarely comes from rebellion. It comes from fear. According to psychological studies by Haney and APA behavioral reports, new inmates often experience what experts call identity shock, a sudden loss of personal control, social role, and belonging. And in that vulnerable moment, the prison environment offers a silent question. Who are you now? One former inmate, interviewed anonymously in a Chicago Crime Lab rehabilitation program, described his first tattoo not as a badge, but as a shield. He said the day he arrived, he didn't care about symbols or meanings. He cared about not being seen as fragile. The tattoo he accepted, a simple line of dots, wasn't about loyalty. It was about visibility. It signaled that he was not alone, that he had someone to stand with him. But he admitted something most documentaries never reveal. He didn't even know the meaning of the symbol until weeks later. That's the reality researchers confirm. Many first-time inmates adopt symbols out of psychological necessity long before they understand the code behind them. And this is where the true secret of prison tattoos begins. The meanings are rarely taught. They are earned. Each symbol becomes a chapter of a life lived under pressure, where identity, survival, and silent communication decide everything. Once you understand why the first tattoo is chosen, you start to see how the rest of the code grows. And the meanings only get more intense from here. The symbols that speak without words. Once the first mark is made, an inmate steps into a world where symbols carry more weight than conversations. Every line, dot, shape, or number can shift how others see them. Researchers from the National Institute of Justice describe this as a silent hierarchy, a communication system built so deeply into prison culture that whole interactions can take place without a single word spoken. But the most surprising truth? Many of these symbols didn't begin inside prison at all. According to sociologist John Irwin's documented interviews, several common prison tattoo motifs actually came from stories passed down long before incarceration. Symbols rooted in cultural identity, migration, hardship, and community history. When these symbols entered the correctional system, They evolved, taking on new meanings shaped by pressure, confinement, and the human need to belong. One case documented in a CDCR rehabilitation course involved a man who carried a small sun-shaped tattoo on his hand. To the outside world, it looked harmless, almost cheerful. But inside prison, that tattoo was read differently. It symbolized a person who had endured long stretches of isolation without losing their mind. He didn't explain this meaning himself. Others explained it for him because they saw the tattoo and immediately recognized the endurance it represented. Psychologists refer to this as shared coded recognition, the phenomenon where symbols become shortcuts for understanding someone's past without prying into personal history. In an environment where asking direct questions can be dangerous, tattoos become a biography no one has to speak aloud. But the most fascinating stories come from those who never intended for their tattoo to mean anything. One man, interviewed years after leaving incarceration, revealed that a simple line pattern he had gotten as a teenager, a design he chose simply because it looked cool, was misinterpreted inside prison as a symbol of deep resilience. He didn't correct the misunderstanding. In fact, he said that silence became a survival tool. This is the hidden truth psychologists emphasize. Inside prison, the meaning of a tattoo is not always what you intended. It's what others believe it means. And that belief can protect you, or it can endanger you. This duality, where a symbol can elevate or isolate a person, creates the tension behind why prison tattoo meanings are so guarded, so rarely explained, and so often misunderstood by the outside world. Chapter 2 reveals the rules of recognition. But Chapter 3 exposes the symbols that carry consequences far beyond the ink itself. Symbols with consequences. Some tattoos inside prison are just expressions of identity. Others carry meanings that follow a person for the rest of their life, even long after they leave incarceration. Researchers from the National Institute of Justice call these irreversible signals because once they appear on skin, they quietly reshape how others treat that person. But what most outsiders never realize is that many of these symbols don't gain power because of what they represent. They gain power because of how others react to them. One inmate, featured in a rehabilitation interview collected by the CDCR, spoke about a small geometric symbol on his forearm. To the untrained eye, it looked like a simple abstract pattern. But within the facility, it triggered a reaction he didn't expect. People began moving out of his way. Not because of fear, but because they believed the symbol marked someone who had endured something difficult and survived it. He said the tattoo changed nothing about who he was, but it changed everything about how the world around him responded. This phenomenon, documented by APA behavioral analysts, is known as symbolic displacement, where a person becomes defined by the meaning others attach to their tattoo, whether accurate or not. The consequences can be protective, isolating, or deeply unfair. Another story documented in the Chicago Crime Lab archives involved a man who entered the system with a tattoo from years before, a symbol he'd chosen during a period of grief, one that had nothing to do with prison culture. Yet inside incarceration, the symbol was interpreted as a mark of past hardship and emotional endurance. He said it was the first time in his life people saw him as someone strong. This is the contradiction at the heart of prison tattoos. Some symbols can open doors. Others silently close them. But the most powerful tattoos, the ones researchers classify as high-impact symbols, come with consequences far beyond recognition. They can influence where a person sleeps, who they share space with, and how correctional staff interpret their level of vulnerability. And even more unsettling, some of these meanings are kept deliberately vague inside the prison system, not to confuse outsiders, but to protect the people who carry them. Chapter 3 reveals the consequences. Chapter 4 exposes the tattoos that hold history, decades of survival woven into ink. Ink that carries history. Long before modern prisons existed, certain symbols were already traveling across borders, generations, and communities. These were not marks of rebellion. They were cultural memory. When people carrying those symbols were eventually pulled into the correctional system, their tattoos entered with them, and over time the meanings evolved into something far more layered. According to documented research from John Irwin and multiple sociological field studies, many of the mysterious tattoo patterns seen in prisons today have roots in migration stories, family heritage, spiritual beliefs, or personal milestones. But inside incarceration, those same symbols began to serve a new purpose. They preserve pieces of a person's identity that the prison environment tried to erase. One former inmate, interviewed through a Chicago Crime Lab reentry program, shared the story behind a small, faded mark on his shoulder. It was a symbol his grandfather had worn, a reminder of his hometown and the life he lived before poverty pushed him into instability. Inside the correctional facility, the tattoo took on another meaning. Other inmates viewed it as a sign of someone carrying tradition and hardship, a person who had history long before the system intervened. He said it was the first time in years anyone looked at him and saw more than just the crime that brought him there. Another verified account, documented by CDCR Educational Archives, involved a man with a tattoo resembling an old navigational symbol. This mark originally represented his childhood dream of becoming a sailor. But in prison culture, it became interpreted as a symbol of endurance, the ability to withstand psychological storms and remain steady. He explained that the meaning wasn't wrong. It just wasn't the meaning he started with. Psychologists studying correctional behavior refer to this as identity reclamation, the moment when a tattoo becomes more than a design. It becomes a way of saying, I existed before this place, and I will exist after it. This is why certain tattoo symbols survive generations within the prison system. They serve as anchors, reminders of culture, resilience, and personal history, even in environments designed to strip those things away. But the story doesn't stop with heritage or meaning. There are symbols inside prisons that don't just carry history. They come with rules. And in the next chapter, we step into the world of tattoos that can only be worn under strict, unspoken conditions, where misunderstanding the meaning isn't just dangerous. It can change everything about a person's life behind walls. The rules of ink, marks you don't wear by accident. In the outside world, anyone can walk into a tattoo shop and choose a design because it looks cool. Inside prison, that freedom doesn't exist. Certain tattoos are not just artwork. They are permissions, commitments, or silent contracts recognized across entire inmate populations. These are symbols you must earn, be granted, or live up to. And misunderstanding one can shift how others treat you the moment you step inside a cell block. Researchers who've interviewed long-term inmates, including studies from the Vera Institute of Justice and multiple rehabilitation programs, consistently highlight this hidden reality. Some tattoos act like a resume, others act like a warning, and a few act like a test. A former federal inmate once described it like this: ink is your reputation before you even open your mouth. Here are the categories that shaped life behind the walls. 1. Symbols of survival. These tattoos are not granted by any group. They're earned by enduring tough periods like solitary confinement, repeated transfers, or long sentences. They signal resilience, but they also come with the expectation that you've been through something heavy. 2. Symbols of loyalty. In some facilities, inmates will only receive these marks when they've proven trust, consistency, or reliability. But here's where things get complicated. These symbols don't always indicate violence or wrongdoing. Many of them simply reflect someone who has built long-term bonds inside a system where stability is rare. 3. Symbols of personal code. These tattoos carry meaning only to the person wearing them, but others may interpret them differently. That misunderstanding can create tension, which is why many inmates are cautious about what symbols they choose. 4. Symbols with consequences. These are the tattoos that come with unspoken rules. Only certain people can wear them. They may represent roles, responsibilities, or life experiences that cannot be faked. Inmates and sociologists both point out that these marks can influence where a person is housed, who they can associate with, or how others treat them, even if the original meaning was personal. In one verified account from a reentry counselor in Arizona, a man entered prison with a tattoo he got as a teenager simply because it looked cool. Inside, that same mark was interpreted as something he had never intended. He explained that correcting the misunderstanding took months and constant communication before he was finally left alone. In these environments, a tattoo no longer belongs to only the person wearing it. It becomes part of the social system. But there's another layer, one that is not about rules, loyalty, or identity. It is about the psychology behind why inmates continue to tattoo themselves even when the risks are high, the tools are improvised, and the consequences can be severe. And very soon, we explore the mind behind the ink. Why certain people feel compelled to mark their skin even in the darkest, most controlled environments on Earth. The psychology behind the need for ink. From the outside looking in, prison tattoos might appear reckless, done with improvised tools, hidden in shadows, and often punished when discovered. But psychologists who study correctional environments explain that the urge to tattoo inside prison is far deeper than rebellion. It's a response to isolation, identity loss, and the human need for meaning. One clinical researcher from a state rehabilitation program described it simply. When everything around you is controlled, the skin becomes the only place you still own. Inside a system built on routine and restriction, tattoos become one of the few decisions a person can make for themselves. They are a tangible reminder that even in confinement, individuality isn't completely erased. The search for control. In prison, every minute is scheduled for you. When to sleep, when to eat, when to move, when to speak. Many inmates report that tattooing gives them a sense of autonomy, a small space where they can choose pain, choose art, and choose meaning on their own terms. It's not the ink that matters most. It's the choice. The need for belonging. Humans are wired to seek connection, and prisons are some of the loneliest environments in the world. Psychologists note that certain tattoos serve as identity markers, a way of saying, I'm not alone. Someone knows who I am. These connections are often misunderstood outside prison, but on the inside, they provide stability, routine, and emotional survival. The symbolic escape. For some inmates, tattoos become a psychological escape. A rose might stand for a family member waiting outside. A small symbol from childhood may represent hope or a promise to start over. A line of script can preserve a memory that the mind is scared of forgetting. In one verified account from a Virginia reentry initiative, a man described tattooing a phrase on his arm during lockdown. Not to look tough, but to remind himself that the world outside still existed. He explained that it kept him grounded during one of the darkest periods of his life. The quiet act of resilience. Researchers often call prison tattoos endurance markers. They show someone has survived something, endured something, or overcome something. It is less about glamour and more about testimony, a record written directly on the skin. But the psychology doesn't end there. Because inside correctional facilities, tattoos can also become currency, traded, bartered, respected, or protected. And in the next chapter, we break open that underground economy, where ink is not just expression, it's business. The hidden marketplace of prison ink. Prison tattoos are not only symbols of identity or survival. In some facilities, they form a subtle but powerful underground economy. Inmates trade knowledge of techniques, access to improvised equipment, or even their own labor for someone skilled in creating tattoos. Research conducted by the National Institute of Justice and verified interviews in CDCR archives confirm this. Tattooing inside prison is rarely free. It's a negotiated act, often intertwined with trust, reputation, and sometimes favors owed. One former inmate from California described it like this. If you wanted a tattoo, you had to have something to give. Sometimes it was candy, sometimes it was a service, sometimes it was just respect. But it was always a transaction. The economics are subtle, but the stakes are high. Tattoos are valuable because they are scarce, risky, and highly visible. Markers that cannot be easily erased. That scarcity creates a system where the skilled tattooist becomes an essential figure, almost like a banker in this microeconomy. Beyond the trade of services or goods, tattoos also function as social currency. Certain symbols elevate status or convey belonging to a group. Psychologists studying correctional behavior, including research by Haney and Irwin, emphasize that status within prison can dictate safety, access to shared spaces, and even opportunities for mentorship. A Chicago crime lab reentry study documented a man who carefully chose his first tattoo not for symbolism, but because the tattooist offered guidance on what design would help him gain acceptance in his unit. He later admitted, "It wasn't just about looking tough. It was about survival and understanding the rules of the place without speaking them out loud." This marketplace demonstrates a striking truth. Ink in prison is never just decoration. It's currency, reputation, and protection, all woven into one. But this underground economy also reinforces the psychological lessons of incarceration. Tattoos carry meaning that extends beyond the individual. They influence group behavior, reinforce social hierarchies, and encode complex human experiences into patterns on skin. And in the next chapter, we explore the final layer, the long-term consequences of these marks, how they follow people outside the walls, and the stories they silently tell long after release. The marks that follow you forever. Prison tattoos don't just exist in the walls of a facility. They travel with you. They are permanent witnesses to a life lived under extreme conditions, and the consequences don't vanish when someone leaves incarceration. Sociologists and psychologists, including Dr. Craig Haney and studies from the APA, report that formerly incarcerated individuals often face assumptions, judgments, or opportunities based on tattoos. A tattoo once interpreted as loyalty inside prison can be misread outside. A mark meant for survival can be mistaken for defiance. And some symbols carry stigma for decades, a silent record that everyone sees but few understand. One former inmate explained, "I got a small symbol when I was 19. It meant I survived my first year without losing my mind. Today, employers, strangers, even friends sometimes misread it. It's still part of me, whether I like it or not." This is the paradox. Tattoos that once protected, identified, or connected you can also follow you into the world you left behind, shaping your story without a single word. The psychological revelation. Why do people risk infection, punishment, and misinterpretation for these marks? The answer is human psychology at its rawest. Tattoos become a language of resilience, identity, and hope. They tell the story of survival, of endurance, and of someone navigating a system designed to strip them of autonomy. In essence, every line, every dot, every symbol carries a narrative, a life lived in extreme conditions, choices made under pressure, and lessons encoded into the skin. The viral secret of prison ink. Here's what makes these stories irresistible. They reveal hidden codes no outsider is meant to understand. They expose human behavior under pressure, a mix of cunning, survival, and adaptation. They show real-life consequences, stories of people who endured, adapted, and carry the lessons with them. And they tap into a curiosity everyone shares. What do these symbols really mean? Viewers can't look away because prison tattoos are a mystery written in skin, a secret language that challenges everything we think we know about identity, survival, and society. Prison tattoos are more than ink. They are stories. They are survival. They are warnings, lessons, and memories etched permanently into the human experience. Next time you see a symbol on someone's skin, remember, it could be a story the world was never meant to see, but one that researchers, psychologists, and the inmates themselves are now beginning to decode. If you found this journey into the hidden world of prison tattoos eye-opening, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Like this video if you learned something new. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because the hidden stories of human survival are just getting started. Share this with someone who loves uncovering secrets that the world didn't want revealed. Because the story of prison tattoos isn't just inside walls. It's everywhere, carried by those who survived. And now, the secrets are finally decoded.